Thank you. Really appreciate being here. Thanks to Terry for making his land and space available. Thanks for Tim for inviting me. I just want to give you a little bit of background about me, because I don't have the advantage of being from Mildura. I actually grew up at Woomalang, on a sheep and wheat farm in Woomalang. The Simpson family, for those that know the area, went to school at Sea Lake. Like so many young people, went off to Melbourne after I finished Year 12, and my career has been very varied. I've worked in accounting, in community development, in youth work. I have actually worked for a solar installation company, and then I became a lawyer, and because of the previous accounting work I have a tax specialisation, and so now I'm actually a tax trainer, so I train accountants in tax. But over the course of my career, and certainly the current work that I do, I have done a lot of legislation analysis and draft bills, looking at draft bills, looking at what the impact of them is going to be. So I've done that at state level, and I've done that at federal level as well, and I've worked across federal and state governments to actually change laws, to make them harmonise with one another, so we don't have different, one law here and another law across the border. So I have that kind of understanding of when a draft law is proposed, who is it going to affect, how is it going to affect them, what will it mean for the people on the ground. Not what will the announcement mean, because sometimes a new law, whether it's good or not, a new law is only good in the announcement, but when you actually see how it's going to work on the ground, you realise that it's actually not very good for anyone, certainly not for communities. Also, as Ali did, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm standing on Latchi Latchi land, and I'd like to acknowledge the elders past, present and future. I'd also like to congratulate all in the Victorian government who have actually started a treaty process in Victoria. And I just want to say something about that because it has a connection with what's going on here. A lot of people have a bit of a fear about what treaty might mean. Of course, certainly I grew up on a farm, and my dad certainly did. But it doesn't mean that people are going to lose their farms or lose access, or other people are going to have access to their farms, or people are going to lose their property. All the Treaty Commission is seeking is acknowledgement and truth-telling. And one of the things that I really heard from that video, what a wonderful video, I was very moved by that. One of the things that I heard is that we haven't had a lot of truth-telling. And there's a lot of concern about that, and so there should be. You can't have significant infrastructure development, and significant impacts on communities if you don't have people telling the truth to you from the start. So I really understand your concerns. Just a little bit about the Greens, and you've all said it and I understand it. Clearly the Greens support renewable energies. And in fact, 10 years ago is when Beyond Zero Emissions, Melbourne University-based scientific or group of scientists got together and said Australia can be 100% renewable, like powered by 100% renewable energy in 10 years. That was 10 years ago. And that's the time when state government should have actually done their job. What is the job of the people that you elect to Parliament? Their job is not to run around making promises and, this money and that money. Their job in Parliament is to make laws. That is the sole role of Parliament, to make laws, to review laws, to make sure that laws are good, to make sure that laws are made in your best interests, that laws protect the community, that laws protect agricultural land, that laws protect your rights. Don't take away from them. But unfortunately, you haven't seen that kind of lawmaking go on from your current elected representatives. So the Greens have done a couple of things that I guess seek to put in those protections. So one of them is around the issue of privatisation, and the Greens just recently, in the last couple of weeks, proposed to return electricity into the public hands, to actually create a public electricity provider called Power Victoria, and they will have electricity prices that are provided at cost, not to make a profit for shareholders, and often shareholders that are overseas. It will be at cost. The way it used to be, who remembers when electricity was actually set by legislation and there was one price, the same price for everyone, irrespective of whether you were a business or an individual, whether you lived in Melbourne or whether you lived in Mildura. So that's one of the things, apart from seeking a 100% renewable future, that the Greens are doing. So of course that does require solar installations, but also wind. I don't think we have, I mean, look at what it's been like. I don't think we have fully utilised the possibilities for wind as well, and particularly the way that it can give farmers economic outcomes that actually help them to get through the tough years, you know, the drought years, or the years, you know, our community of Warmalang went downhill when the government decided to donate a whole lot of wheat to Iraq, but then failed to pay the farmers for that. So some of you might remember that, but that's, you know, that's really was the demise of our farming community in Warmalang, and that's when my brother said no, he didn't want the farm. He came up here to Mildura with his wife, and he became a viticulturalist. My mum and dad went to Rutherglen, and eventually my brother followed there. Obviously lots of wine and grapes there as well. But that's when things kind of went wrong, when you know, it wasn't just a bad year, it wasn't just a drought year, it was, you know, not getting paid for the work that you do. But yeah, solar, you know, solar and renewables is the answer. But I have been, I've only had a couple of weeks notice, a couple of weeks since we've talked about it, Tim, trying to take in a lot of information, talked to a number of people from Powerbolt, I've talked to Tim, I've talked to others, I've read articles, I have read all the planning applications, I've read some of the objections and so forth, and tried to understand what's going on. And I absolutely and 100% agree that you need to relocate the solar. There is no doubt in my mind that that actually has to happen, because all your concerns are very legitimate and very correct. But you know, that's not going to be easy, is it? And there's a lot of timing issues. Yes, we need state governments to catch up with their job and make the right laws, but there really is a timing issue with that. As I said, because I've been involved in law making, I know that the laws, to get good laws that have the public interest as a priority, to get them changed, you know, drafted and consulted on and go through the parliamentary process, there's no way that is going to happen before the next state election in November. So you're left with what you've got at the moment, and obviously council has a clear role in this, and I actually don't doubt that council will not support this, but that leaves you in a vulnerable position as well, because then you will probably end up in the legal appeals process, going through the justice system, the court system, which as a lawyer has never been just. You know, there really isn't much about it, and that leaves you vulnerable too. And without the necessary kind of direction from your state government, you know, vision, strategies, policy and laws, you know, I know how hard it is for you to fight those things. There's other things that are going on at the moment too, in terms of when private interests are running electricity production. Obviously in Mildura and surrounding area, private interests are running public hospitals, and these things should never happen. Private interests are now being asked to fix roads, and that is a real issue as well. We should not privatise the fixing of roads, you know, because then they're going to make decisions about which road will we fix, because which one will give us the best profit, not, you know, which road, i.e. the Robinvale to Manangatang road, for example, is one that really actually needs to be fixed. We have the Australian Electricity Market Operator, the AEMO, that has just come out with a report that talked about the transmission lines in Northern Victoria and Western Victoria, and how they are inadequate and they haven't been properly maintained and serviced to actually carry extra transmission. Now I don't know how that impacts on this particular proposal, but that is a bit of an issue. Now the responsibility for maintaining those transmission lines has been given to a private operator. So they're now owned by a private entity that has an interest in making a profit for shareholders. And so that's why Northern and Western Victoria now actually don't have the infrastructure needed to put these renewable energy projects in place. And because they are in the state that they are in, it's actually holding back 2,300 kilowatts of energy production. Now, 2,300 kilowatts, megawatts, maybe it's megawatts, I don't know. I know it's 2,300 versus the 1,600 that Hazelwood produced. So it would be more than what the Hazelwood power station used to produce. And it's being held back because a private entity that has control of that has not been maintaining it properly. So the transmission lines just don't have the capability for that. So these are renewable energy projects that actually could be, creating the jobs and the economic outcomes in this community that you need. So there's lots of issues going on that I guess are relevant to your space. So, what can you do? As I said, I'm actually pretty sure that you've got good counsellors here. And I'm sorry that Jason Monica's not here. He took me along the Murray and up the Darling last time I was here in June. And I certainly know that he really does have the public good and the public interest at heart. But as I said, that will still leave you vulnerable because there's so many cases where the council's knocked things back, but then it's ended up in VCAT, and VCAT actually kind of, from a legal perspective, they have often stepped outside of their jurisdiction and made decisions that they really don't have the power to make. They're supposed to stand in the shoes of the original decision maker of the council and use the same rules that the council has to make the decision by. But they have been making their decision based on other reasons. Also, you really want this decision to be made at a local level because local representatives really care about the local issues and know about them and care about the community. As soon as you let a decision be made by the state, which is what's happened in Shepparton, the state doesn't really keep the community in picture. And they don't really consider the community's interests. So I would really encourage you to do whatever you can to get this decision made locally. And I think there is an opportunity, whilst there hasn't been truth-telling, getting back to my point before, I really do think there's an opportunity to pursue, mediation, informal mediation. Well, informal in a way, but formal in that you get some representatives of your group, that you've obviously already got some who are kind of running that, representatives from council, representatives from Powervolt, and some independent people who can give you information about the transmission capabilities, about the locations, about all the other options. I looked at a couple on Friday of your options, but then I kind of drove out to Robinvale and Patchy and Oyen yesterday. There's so, as you say, I know I grew up there. There's so much space. There's so many other potential locations. So I really do think that I encourage you to think about that mediation process. Process is important. That's what can help you here, good process. And I would really be happy to help you to move that along if that's what you think is something that would work, that mediation opportunity to actually let everyone sit down together, acknowledge one another, hear, get the facts put on the table, not what some people would like to be the facts, but the real facts, the real truth, and try and work forward from there and try and keep control of this process through that kind of consultation aspect. So as Tim said, I'm just here for today. I've been here 3 days. I've got to take the plane back tonight, get back to work tomorrow. I do just want to give a plug to our stickers because I would rather take the train, and I'm sure you would too. So if you want a sticker, please grab one. I am still learning, but I feel like I got so much out of that video. So well done for putting that together. That will be quite powerful. And I'm really up to hear from Peter Crisp. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. So thanks for your time.